Hello, everyone. This is Nicholas Ellis this afternoon. Today we're going to talk about interviewing and job searching today. Some of the things you want to do in an interview is try to sell yourself during the interview. I know it may be hard because you have Asperger's or autism or ADHD or whatever your diagnosis is. I mean, interviewing in general is tough for everyone. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. It's even hard for people that are neurotypicals too. So, typically, when I go to an interview, I I study the questions first. So, tell me about yourself. This might be one question. Well, you could say, well, I graduated from high school in 2005 from uh, Ellis City, Wisconsin. I went on to the technical college for the office assistant program. Just explain yourself into detail. Um, uh, Try selling yourself. The best thing in an interview is don't slouch down. Try to sit up straight. Try to make as much eye contact as you can. Um, that's a process to a good interview. Um, Also, some good job fits for people with Asperger's, in my opinion, would be like working in a factory, something that's repetitious. I've worked in a factory in the past that didn't work out. That was over 13 years ago. But not every job is cut out for everyone. Um, if you were terminated from a previous job, um, don't bash your previous employer in the interview. It doesn't look good. Um, just say that you were. If they ask you why you were or why you left your job, you can. If they ask you if you were terminated, you probably should tell them that you were terminated from your job or from employment. Um, you have to be honest about that in an interview. If they don't ask you, you don't have to tell them. But or you could just say the job with your employer didn't work out well. Um, Actually, let me look up something really quick. My best advice would be is to say that either you were let go or I will look right here. Or the best choice would say if they ask you why you got terminated or why did you leave your last job, you could just say the company and I have parted ways. I mean, you don't want to bash your previous employer. You don't want to talk bad about them, regardless of what industry you worked in, whether it's factory work, retail, grocery, um, working at a gas station, um, working at the local mall. You don't want to bash any employer. Also, proper. I would say probably dress up in nice clothes for the interview. Don't overly dress up. If you're finding a job working in, I would say nice dress pants. Um, don't wear blue jeans to an interview. Don't wear. You probably should. I would say just try to sell yourself during the interview. Sometimes it's easier said than done, but make sure that you practice and stuff before your interview and stuff. Some other things. You don't have to disclose about your disability in an interview. Um, that's a personal preference. Um, and that it's actually a personal preference. I'm not gonna tell you what you can and what you can't do, or what you can't say during an interview. That's not my job here. My job is just to teach you guys some awareness and some maybe some job interviewing skills that can help you out in the process of finding a job. I would say some things you want to do in an interview. You want to be honest with them. And why do you want to be honest? Because they can go back and do a background check on you, and if you lied and said you weren't terminated from your previous job, or you don't put it down, that could include termination from employment or result in corrective action. Remain positive in the interview. If you're proud of an accomplishment that you did at your previous employer, I mean, this would apply to everybody, regardless if you have Asperger's or you're neurotypical. I mean, if you have a good accomplishment, let's say you're good at working with customer service, you're good at getting, I don't know, maybe you're really good at working in the grocery department, and you can get 2 carts of 2 U-boats done in an hour. A U-boat would be a cart that's about as long as probably about 12, 13, 20 feet long and about 6 feet high, with boxes and stuff. When you stock it on the floor and put it on the shelf, you could say, well, my greatest accomplishment at my previous job was I was good at stocking shelves. I got everything done. I got in an efficient manner. You could tell them that you went the extra mile for customer service. You always made sure the product looked nice on the shelf. I mean, this can apply to any job. It doesn't really have to apply to retail. Like I said, I worked in retail for 14 years, so I don't know much about any other industry, but I do know a little bit about the working world, and it can be fun. Don't be late for your interview. I would try to at least arrive 15 minutes early for your interview. I mean, you don't want to be too early for it either. That's a big no-no, being late for the interview. And being too early for the interview isn't great either. Keep it simple. While an employer wants you to understand the circumstances behind your termination, it's important that the basic facts. Keep your explanation as simple and brief as possible. Don't feel obligated to give details about what led being fired unless you absolutely necessary, unless they ask you. Remain positive. It's important to remain calm and avoid saying negative things about your previous employer, because the hiring manager is evaluating whether you will be a positive addition to their company and team. Be mindful of how you started and ended the conversation. Demonstrate personal growth. Now, demonstrating personal growth would mean maybe you accomplished something great at work. Maybe you got promoted to being a supervisor or manager. That's personal growth. Demonstrating yourself in an interview. Just good interviewing techniques. I wouldn't say brag about yourself too much. Try to sell yourself, but don't go overboard where you're starting to go off topic. That's not good either. Promote your skills and experience. Practice changing the topic of discussion of value to offer the company. This helps you keep your conversation about termination as brief as possible, and let transition to discussing your experience and the new position. Some examples might be, what can you say if you were, why were you fired? Here are some brief examples. Unmatched skill set. Laid off due to company restructure. Did not meet attendance policy. The job wasn't a good fit. Conflict with the coworker. Sometimes stuff like that happens at work, unfortunately, and it it happens. As for the job resume or the CVs, the curriculum vitae in Europe, I don't know much about the curriculum vitae. I may do some more research on that too. The resume goes over previous job experiences, like your previous employer was, let's just say, John's car garage. You could list your experience. That was, you could say you were an office assistant at John's car garage. You put down your skills, your accomplishments at the previous job. You put down your references and stuff. That's just an example. That's just an example job. I'm not going to go over the whole resume, things in detail. I may, if you need some help on resume development, I might be able to try to help you. But as far as interviewing goes, try to stay calm. Take a couple deep breaths when you go in. Sometimes that's easier said than done. Okay, I'm just checking my phone here for some example stuff. Some possible questions during an interview might be, why did you leave your most recent job? Your possible answer is you left voluntarily. They laid you off. That's a good answer. Another question might be, are you saying that you were terminated? For what reason? You could give an answer like, I was late too much, was given an unfair workload after my colleague resigned, disagreed with the company policy I felt was unethical. They might ask you, since you have already been terminated once, how do you know you're not going to be a problem if I hire you? Possible answer to that is, you can see my extensive work history, and that single incident is the only time it's happened in my working career. As I explained briefly, the circumstances were exceptional and I have really learned a good lesson. Now I know better how to handle these situations. What not to say? That's a good question, what not to say. That's a very good question. What not to say? I would say, don't, like I've said previously, don't bash your employer. Don't talk bad about your previous managers. It doesn't look good. It's one of those things you kind of want to avoid. I mean, you may end up working for your previous employer someday again. I don't know. You could. I'm going to take a break here. I will be right back. And when you are offered the job, it's probably a good idea to take the job right away, not sit there and think about it for a week. There has been problems about that with the past with people. Um, I would say if you want to find a job, I would say try to at least apply for at least 10 to 15 jobs a week. That will increase your likelihood of getting a job. Resume development, working on a cover letter, working on a thank you letter, um, being professional and courteous when you go into a specific employer or employer you work at. When it comes to follow-up calls, I recommend only calling once a week, and maybe call on, let's say you had an interview today, you'd probably want to call and follow up next Wednesday. And if you don't hear back, maybe you could call the next Wednesday. And I would say only call and follow up twice. Then write a thank you letter. Don't be overbearing. Don't call every day. Employers don't really like that when you call every day and follow up. I've known some people have done that in the past, and it doesn't really get you a job. It just kind of doesn't look good. I know sometimes us people with Asperger's have a hard time when it comes to that. Just try to remain positive. If you think you did good during the interview, that's good. Most of the time, just go with your intuition. It's how you get to be successful. Practice your interviewing skills with your friend, your spouse, your wife, your husband, or whoever, or your significant other. When it comes to resume development, I know a little bit about it. I'm not going to post mine because I don't want to, but I could go over a sample resume and provide it in a link below if you want me to. When it comes to actually getting hired onto the job, that's a process. Most places you go through on-the-job training, you go through orientation. Here in the United States, you will go through the tax stuff, the tax filing statements, the W-2s, and I'm not sure what all the other tax forms are. You'll have to ask them when you get hired on at your job, whatever that job may be. Just ask your HR, human resources, or hiring manager. Each company is different. Not every company has a human resources director or human resources manager. I mean, most companies are awesome. It's one of those things where you want to be, you don't want to be too overbearing at your job either. You don't want to bash your previous employer even once you're hired at the new job. No, that's a big no-no. Some things you want to do during the job: try your best, try to go the extra mile, have a good attitude, have a smile at work, try to be on time every day. At least right now where I work, we gotta be at least 10 minutes early because of COVID. Because they check us in every day, check our temps and stuff. But I won't go into any more detail than that. Most companies are doing that now with COVID-19. They'll ask you questions. Not every employer does that, but most will check now to see if you are running a fever. If you're running a fever, you probably shouldn't go to work anyways. If you got a sore throat, you shouldn't go to work anyways. That's just pretty much common sense. I shouldn't really have to talk about this, but it's just a time period where we live in. And don't question the questions if they ask you questions. I mean, if they ask you a question, they might ask you a series of health questions. They might not. Employers do have a right to ask you questions about that because we are in a pandemic. I don't want to scare anybody. I don't want to offend anybody, but they do have a right to ask you questions. That's how it works. When it comes to try to get as much training as you can. Try to ask as many questions as you can. It looks better when you ask questions. Just don't assume. Let's say you're working, you got hired at a new job at Johnny's computer factory. And you don't know how to assemble this computer, let's just say. You're working on the assembly line, and well, you don't want to put part A in there when part B goes in there. Or you don't want to, yeah, or a better example would be working in a produce department. That would be a better analogy for, because I know a little bit more about the job. Ask all the questions you can. Don't just assume where stuff goes. Don't just put the product out on the floor. Just put it in any spot. It don't look good. If you're in that kind of profession, make sure you rotate the produce. Be consistent. Be as efficient as you can. Now, like I said, this is just an analogy. This doesn't apply to all jobs. But pretty much common sense tells you that if produce is moldy, you pull it off the floor. Pretty much, and when it comes to cell phones at a company, I would not use your cell phone at the workplace. A lot of companies kind of frown on it, unless you're using it for customer service. And most places won't let you use your cell phone for customer service. At a previous job, I had a customer ask me if they could use my cell phone to contact someone, but that's kind of highly frowned upon. It's your cell phone's your personal property. Just don't let people try to take advantage of using your phone. I mean, when it comes to workplace harassment. Workplace harassment is not tolerated. It's zero tolerance. As with any kind of harassment, sexual harassment, any kind of harassment, any kind of, some places you may be subject to a drug test where you work. That's how we do it here. Not all employers do that, but a vast majority of employers do. That's something you can't refuse because they won't hire you on them. If you refuse it, then you pretty much lose a job offer. Following company rules. Let's say you work for company ABC, Grocery Stores Incorporated. Let's say they tell you got to take your lunch by a certain time. That means you have to follow that policy. Just because it's not the law, just because it's not on the state law books, doesn't mean you have a right to not follow that policy. Every company has their own rules and laws. So if you got to take your lunch by, let's say you work like a 11 to 6 and they want you to take your lunch by 4 p.m. You need to take it by 4 p.m. You don't question them. I'm not trying to be mean. That's just how it is. You got to follow work rules. If they tell you that you got to take an hour paid, an unpaid lunch for an hour, that's how it works. If they tell you that you got to take two 15-minute breaks every 4 hours, that's how it works. There's no state law here in the United States. I don't believe there's any state laws against not taking breaks, or at least here in Wisconsin there isn't. I don't know about other states. I know here in Wisconsin we're not. It's not law that we take a break every 4 hours. I don't even think it's a law for a lunch break, but you still got to follow company policy and guidelines. I know sometimes there's people with Asperger's do like to question authority. Employers don't really like that when you question their authority or tell too much. Or if you know too much, then they might raise the expectations out of you. Like if you worked 15 years at a mechanical shop and you've got the most experience working there, and you start bragging about what you did at your previous job and we did it differently. Well, most employers don't want to hear about how the previous employer did that. That can be a mistake at a new job. In the open door policy, some companies have open door policies. That's something you don't want to use every day. That's something you want to use occasionally. It's not just something you want to go talk to your manager every day. Oh, I don't like the way this is being done. This should be done this way, let's just say. Let's just say you don't like the way they're, let's say you're working for a company that removes snow, and you don't like the way they're moving their snow. I mean, you have a right to come up with a better idea, but at the end of the day, that's up to your employer what the idea is. And most employers will not allow you to use personal equipment, cell phones, and personal cars, unless it's approved. Unless it's approved by them. Most of it's just insurance liability issue. I mean, I don't know much about this stuff, but I know a bit. And most employers I worked at are very supportive from my experience. So just try to be nice, come in with a positive attitude every day. Try to stay organized at work. If you're working in like a retail store, maybe you want to make a list of the priority items you want to get out first. Like, let's say you're working in a department store and you're working in the general merchandise area. Your supervisor might tell you to make a list. Well, get the ad items up first that are on sale. That's something you got to get done. This is just my advice. I use the retail analogy because I've done this for so many years. But these analogies can be applied to any job, any circumstances, and even some of the skills you pick up at work can be applied into real life too. I mean, like customer service. I mean, some of the skills can be applied in everyday life, which is cool. As far as I know, I'm not. In the next coming videos, I will try to stay on more of a course where I will try to follow a outline for the videos from now on to make it a little bit more understanding and a little bit more easy to follow. Because I know sometimes I'll go from topic to topic to topic. But I think we will focus on the next couple videos on job searches and interviewing and how we can raise awareness in the workplace for people with Asperger's. And you don't want to be overbearing with your employer. You don't want to constantly ask questions. I mean, if you got a question, that's fine, but just don't be overbearing. There's no question is a bad question, but if you already know the answer to the question and you're just trying to be smart about it, that doesn't look good either. If a coworker is joking around with you and you take it too literally, you might want to just to disclose to your coworker about your Asperger's or your autism or your whatever it is. Then usually from my experience, after I disclose my Asperger's, usually people are generally pretty accepting, which is it's a good thing. You want to feel comfortable at your job. All the jobs I had, I felt comfortable. I felt I was successful. As when it comes to job placement, I know here in the United States there are work programs for people with disabilities and Asperger's. They're called here in Wisconsin. It's called the Division of Workforce Development. It's for people with disabilities. I think most states have something called that. I'm not sure what it is, and I don't know. I just know the state of Wisconsin. I think most states have some Department of Workforce Development, and that's kind of how that goes. And if you like my video, please subscribe and like, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you for listening to my video, part 1 of Asperger's job awareness.